What's up, fight fans? Welcome to Mr. Mustache MMA News. Today, I want to discuss this Saturday's fight between Joe Pyfer and Magomedov at UFC 320. But before we get into it, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button to continue getting more MMA content by yours truly and help the channel grow. All right, guys, getting right into it, we got a pretty fun middleweight matchup this Saturday. Magomedov riding a 3-fight win streak, taking on the surging prospect Joe Pyfer. But at 29 years old, I really don't even really consider him as a prospect anymore. He's a veteran who really just hasn't really just broken through that mold yet. He hasn't really found that, defining victory, even though he's had some really good wins over guys like Marc-Andre Barriou, Abdulrazak Al-Hassan, Gerald Mearshart, coming off the victory over Kelvin Gastelum, but it wasn't so dominant, looked raw, where he looked great early on, right? Crazy power, dropped Kelvin early, cracking him with shots, but just as the fight went on, Kelvin was really just able to slow things down. Joe had issues with his gas tank cardio, being able to really just pick his shots better as the fight went forward, right? As Kelvin started to make adjustments, you saw Joe kind of sticking with what he knew with. So with Pyfer kind of having all this hype, he's still quite raw, right? But I just don't consider him a prospect. I think he's fought enough guys to really not really consider him as a prospect anymore. It's time for him to really figure it out. And against a guy like Magomedov is a really good opportunity to show, like, hey, I'm here to stay. Because Abus is a guy who can really give anybody a hard time. Yeah, he's riding a 3-fight win streak, not over the biggest names, Michel Pereira, Bruno Ferreira, and I think Warley Alves. But a lot of the things that I was kind of critical with him on, because there's only 2 losses in the UFC, are to the top level of Sean Strickland and Caio Borralho, right? In those times where I thought Abus, strong starter, but quickly faded when things didn't really go his way or when people put on the pressure against him. But I really feel like he's kind of changed that story in his last 3 fights. 2 of his last 3 wins are by decision, so he's been able to kind of go out there and get the distance. And over a guy like Michel Pereira, not the biggest name, but he's a tough guy, explosive guy. And Abus went out there and did work over 15 minutes, right? But also his fight with Bruno Ferreira, a fight where he found a 3rd round submission where he was getting pieced up the first 2 rounds. It was not looking good for him. And he was just able to capitalize on the mistake of Bruno in that 3rd round, find himself a really good submission, and had to dig deep to get those victories. So a lot of things that I was critical with him on, I feel like he's been on the right track on rounding out some of those holes, filling in some of those holes in this game. 35 years old, tall, long, and lanky, uses it very well, fights very well. We saw him give Sean a lot of problems in the first round of their fight. Good knees up the middle, good clinch work. He really is able to get his opponents at the end of his strikes, right? Which is, that's where a lot of the pop comes from, especially when you fight long. He's really able to, catch his opponents at the end of his strikes. So here with Joe, Joe Pyfer should go out there and get the victory. He did say in the past where he did not want to fight Abus. He turned the fight down because he felt that his only way to go was forward, which in a sense is like, it's the risk versus reward, where he's not saying that Abus isn't a good fighter. It's just where Abus was and how good of his talent level is. It's too much of a risk for not much of a boost forward. But in the UFC, that doesn't really make sense. If you go out there and you show up and you show out almost against anybody, they're going to give you a favorable, not matchup, but opportunity again, on a pay-per-view, or put you closer to a guy who's ranked, right? So a little short-sighted for Joe. And I think that's the issue with Joe Pyfer. I think he's just his own worst enemy. I think everybody else is the problem. If you listen to his story, he's got some trauma, right? And I get it, but at some point you have to stop blaming everybody else for your issues and just focus on you. And I think Joe, really, if he can just block out some of the noise that he's creating in his own head, and not be fighting himself out there in the octagon, we can see a guy who could be champion, an absolute fucking champion. But it's all about him putting it together. And it starts here with this Saturday against Magomedov, because it's a guy who can bring everything. Good kickboxing, good boxing, good wrestling, good jiu-jitsu. He's going to test Joe Pyfer, but Joe Pyfer, first 5 minutes of any fight, unworldly power. He can put Abus away right away, right? So in retrospect, I can see this being a tough fight for both guys, but also I could see it being a very quick fight for Joe Pyfer, seeing him get his hand raised as well, because I think he really is a diamond in the rough. He just has to figure it out. So I think Joe should get his hand raised in this fight, but I would not be surprised if Abus goes out there and gets the victory. Sneaky good. Sneaky good. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Who do you guys have, Joe Pyfer or Abus Magomedov? Love to hear your guys' thoughts. But that's going to do it for today, guys. Mr. Mustache, MMA news out. Let's fucking go, fight fans.